That is fat. Like, that is fat. Hey guys, it's Will from EDM Tips. So today I'm going to show you how to make future bass, and we will be creating the track that you can hear in the background from scratch using only the free plugins that come with Ableton Live. But you can follow along in any DAW. You can download the project and all the files for free, so you can grab that below. And if you dig this video, subscribe to my channel. Without further ado, let's hop into the DAW and get it done. So let's get started. First thing to do is select a future bass tempo. Could be 140, could be 150. I've gone for 150. And I'm using Splice to find my samples today, as I usually do. These guys should give me a freaking commission or something, but whatever. Cool. So all I've done is I searched for drums, searched in the genre of future bass. If you haven't looked at splice.com yet, it's pretty cool. I'm going to drag in a future bass drum loop. It says it's 140 BPM, so just make sure that the warp is on 140 if you're using Ableton, so then you can have it in sync with your track. Cool. So I'm going to just take that down by 6 to make sure that we've got plenty of space on the master channel as we work. And the next thing we're going to do is create future bass synth chords. I think that's on my magic thing. So before we worry too much about sound design, we're actually going to get the chords. We want them to be really emotive. Like deep, like seventh chords and stuff like that. So let's go actually no, let's just call it chords. And you can choose which key that you want to work in if you want, or you can just jam depending on how good you are at music. So I'm going to go to a synth, and I'm going to show you how to create a really fat super saw stack just by using, I think, operators. Like the simplest of all synths in Ableton. So, oh yeah, that's my fat super saw, man. Awesome Wells. Oh, by the way, this tune is called Dame Future Dench for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So I'm going to write this in the key of E major. So the first thing I'm going to do, and if you're using FL Studio, they've got a scale thing and you can just use that as a template, but I'm going to draw in every note in the key of E major. And then in Ableton, if I grab all of those, put them to one side and press fold, then all these notes are just within the key of E major, so I can start to build my chords, and it's going to sound cool because I'm just using these notes. Cool, okay, that is the rhythm I want. Don't worry, we will be changing this sound very shortly. Okay, so I'm doing the progression, and I'm doing the bass notes first. I'm going to have that an octave down. I held shift and pressed down then, by the way. Okay, cool. So let's now start building the chords. I'm going to unfold, actually. I will grab all my template notes, and I'm just going to duplicate them an octave up. So we've got 2 octaves for the price of 1. Absolute bargain. I'll drag one down as well. So then we got 3 octaves for the price of 1. Let's do that properly. I'm holding Alt and then dragging them down. So now if I press fold, we've got 3 octaves of the key of E major. So you can see I'm just missing a note each time to build this chord. So now we've got a 7th chord, A major 7th. Don't worry about the sound yet. Just get the chords in first. So this isn't a 7th, this is just a major with the octave above it. And you can hear this is now a minor, this chord, as opposed to duh, duh, duh. That's singing. Fact. And this is the same chord, but just an octave down. And the last chord. So now I'm going to unfold and I'm going to do a few notes in between to make it a bit more interesting, keep the groove going. So just to lead back into the loop of the progression. Cool, okay, so now let's create the actual saw sound that we want to. In fact, before that, I'm going to use chord inversions to bring these notes a bit closer together. Let's just get a bit more space on the go. So if we then grab some of these notes and hold shift and press down an octave, they're all going to be in a closer space. In fact, no, before I do that, I'm going to just duplicate this and make a bass line out of it, because otherwise we're going to start messing where our bass notes are. So if we just, in this duplicated track, I'm just keeping the lowest note of each chord. And that's how we get our bass line. I'm deleting all these rest. You can see here, just keeping the lowest note of each chord. I'll take those down an octave. So this is going to be our bass line. But obviously we're going to grab it and take it down a couple of octaves. So that's going to be our sub bass. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. So let's go back into that operator there, and we're going to call this super saw, or sup saw for short. So the first thing to do to create a super saw in Ableton, if you don't have Silence or Serum or any nice big synth like that, is first obviously choose a saw wave. So we'll go for saw 64. Okay, I'm going to take these down an octave as well. That's better. And we can use that inversion that I mentioned, which is basically dropping some of the notes an octave, and then they'll be in a closer range on the keyboard, which makes them sound a bit more cohesive and nice. So if we do this, we push those up an octave. So now you can see everything's within this kind of short space here. But I'm going to leave them as they were for the time being, because I actually prefer that. And now let's make the super saw, or sup saw. So now I've created this, I'm just going to notch the volume down, because when they're all stacked together, we're going to be creating 4 operators. And I'm going to group it, open the group, and I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. Let's try it with 3. So the first one is going to be the main one. And that is right down the center, perfectly in tune. But with the second one, what we're going to do is we're going to detune it slightly. Just using this fine control here. And we're going to detune this other one as well by a slightly different amount. So this one's detuned by 5. We're going to detune this one by like 10 or 8. And now we can pan one left and one right, and then we've got our central one, which is perfectly in tune. Boom! Sup saw. And then obviously you could do another one if you wanted to make that even kind of bigger. But we'll stick for this for now. I'd also turn off the re-trigger so it doesn't go pzz, pzz. What's this? Is this retrigger? Oh no, that's just the oscillator. I don't know how to turn off retrigger. It will be somewhere here, you know, but I'm trying to do this quickly for you, so we will just like whatever. That'll do nicely. And now we want to make this sizzle more. So we're going to add some processing to it, but again, we'll do that soon. So, okay, next thing is the bass, which we've already done. We've kind of made this sub bass, so let's call it sub bass and change the name here because organization is super useful. Said the most boring people in the world, but it's true, unfortunately. Subsaw. I'm just going to call that channel chords actually. That's going to be easier. So let's call that chords. And I've got my massive list of stuff to do here. Ironically, it's actually on a very small piece of paper. So now we are going to make this bass fat. And the way we are going to do that is one of my students actually gave me this pretty cool Ableton rack. It's simple. Let's see, where would it be? Audio effects, audio effect filter app. It's called he's called it the frequency splitter, and it just using the multi-band compressor, or 3 of them. All it does is just splits the frequency range of the bass, but it's all sub bass at the moment, so we might want to add some harmonics by using a bit of saturation. And again, I'm just using the Ableton plugins in this, but you can follow along in whichever DAW you want using the equivalent plugins, of course. So I'm just going to look at some of the presets. Rectifier. So we're adding some more harmonics to that sub bass. And now, if we go into the mid frequency range, we can use this free tool from Ozone called the Ozone Imager. They've just put it on the middle band, and then we can widen that out. So let's have a listen to this. If we press stereo wise. So this is off, super mono. And now we've got some width in our bass, which is cool. Okay, on to the next thing. That would be getting this stuff to kind of gel with the beats. So what we're going to do is create a sidechain compressor. I am actually going to add another operator because I do want it a bit fatter, and I'm going to keep this one in the center but detune it slightly. 3. So now let's listen to our saw synth. What you can also do is you can also kind of change some of the waveforms, which will give it a different sound as well. So if we had a square in there and a triangle, obviously that's changing the sound slightly, but we'll stick to all saws. So you can change the type of saw as well. Okay, on to this next thing, the sidechain. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to create a dedicated sidechain channel, SC, and then we are going to basically program in what is going to be used to trigger our sidechain compressor. And we are going to copy that kick pattern. And we're not sidechaining from the drums themselves because they're all, you know, the kick and the snares all in the same drum pattern. We don't want everything ducking when any of the drums play. So let's grab a simpler, we'll do, and then just like a short sharp tick. So a closed hat, like that'll do. You're not going to be able to hear this. Just going to make it so it hits on a transient. All we're going to do is program in the same pattern as the kick in our drums. And we're going to use that to trigger our other stuff for the sidechain duck. It doesn't matter if it's not on every kick, just the main ones. If it's on every kick, it might actually be too much. Is that right? Probably, that'll do. Okay, so now we've copied that. What you need to do is, oh, that looks, it's very quiet, isn't it? So I'm just going to boost up the volume of that. But it doesn't matter too much because you won't be able to hear it. I've changed it to sends only, so we are, like, you can't hear it, see? But it's still playing. And now when we go to our chords, we can whack on a compressor. And now we can press that little button, sidechain input SC. I'm going to call this pump comp or mump comp. And now it's going to duck when our kick hits. If we pull the threshold down, put the ratio up, and then you can tweak the attack and the release to your taste. Attack would usually be quite fast because you wanted to hit in as soon as that kick's playing, but then we can make the release in time with the rest of the track. Okay, there isn't a second kick in that bit, so we'll take that one out. Whoops. That one out, I mean. All there. Cool. And now we can just copy that pump comp and put it on the bass as well. So now the kick and the bass are going to, I'll just minimize that and that. Now the chords and the bass, sorry, are going to duck. I'm going to take out these little bits from the chords because I actually just like them in the bass line rather than in the chords. So they're kept in the bass line, see. Now let's make it sound really big. So we're going to add some auxiliary reverb. We can just use one for this, actually, for this example. So I'm just going to load on a reverb, make sure it's 100% wet. And now let's add some to our chords. And what we can also do is make sure that we are EQing out on that side chain, sorry, on that aux channel. Getting rid of some of those frequencies in the reverb. And you might want to pull down the effect of the pump a bit. I am actually going to use a bit of tomfoolery on the chords. That's a bit too epic. That's better. More emotional. So I've just made that last note a seventh, which makes it a bit nicer, a bit more epic. I'm going to take this up back an octave because I preferred it there. And what we're going to do to make the bass more interesting is add a couple of pitch bends. So we're just going to make sure that our pitch bend value is set to, well, we'll just use one note because it's a bass line. You don't want more than one note playing. And I'm going to change this pitch value here to 12. So when we drop it a whole octave, it actually does change a whole octave. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to press this little envelope button here, choose MIDI control, pitch bend, and then we're going to do a bit of pitch bends on here. So let's listen to the beats and the bass on their own. Where's that gone? Oh, I changed it. Mixer, here we go. That kind of effect, just to make it, just to add some interest, but make sure that it goes back to, you know, no pitch bend for the main basses. I'm holding Alt to make it a curve. And just make a little bit of interest here. Whoops. Why is that 31? Should be 0. Okay, I'm just going to copy this bit of 0 to make sure that that bit is on 0. It's 31 too. Okay, well, let's copy that because I know that's 0. Okay. Just making sure the pitch bend does resort back to 0. And you can just copy and paste, you know, duplicate that if you want. Don't want it there though, because that's not. So you have to kind of. That's cool. Dope. Right, on to the next thing. Wider frequency done. Oh, vocals. Nice. All right, cool. So this is our main tune. We kind of got it rocking on. Let's add some vocals, and then we're going to do vocal chops as well. But first, I'm going to find the vocals, and I'm going to use Splice for this. Again, we're working in the key of E major. So all on Splice, you can just kind of look in, you know, female vocals or whatever vocals you want, but we want female vocals for future bass really. And then you'd go vocals, and then you can choose, you know, which key it's in. In our case, it's E major. It's quite hard to find full acapellas on Splice, so then you might use something like soundbetter.com to find a vocalist to work with. You know, so
make it out. And the bass goes.
It's usually just little clips and stuff like this. Let's turn the volume down because it might be a bit loud for you.
Make it out.
So if you were to just play your track, you can preview them as you go.
It's only. And the bass goes. Make it out. And I'ma kick it down. Boom. Burning up. We've been burning up. Burning up. Boom.
But I actually found some recently in this key, so we're just going to go to the ones that I downloaded before, but this is exactly how I found them. So let's go to them. Recently added. And we got loads. As I said, they're all kind of little snippets, but that's fine.
I don't care. Yeah. I'm still in love. Tell me the truth.
That's cool. Ideally, you want them dry, so you can put your own effects on them. But I'll just show you how it automatically just sounds good with the track because we know what key we're working in.
Tell me the truth.
You can hear it's in key. So let's get the vocals that we're going to use.
I know you don't love me.
Yep, that's cool.
Hey, call me right now.
Okay, all the wet ones I'm going to put on a different track actually, just to keep them in check, so we can process them differently. Nice, Bridget Kelly. It's kind of the same. Oh, lush. Bit harsh on the ears, that was going to need some EQ. Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Nice.
Call me right now.
Okay guys, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know you want to see all of the stages in this, so let's crack a lack on. Just going to use these ones for the time being. And the way I'm going to do that is by duplicating that, getting rid of the beats and the side chain, just so we can work, see how it sounds with the chords on their own. I'm actually going to bring the bass notes of the bass line back into the chords because I think it sounds nice. Whoops. I copied the this template thing I'd drawn as well, so I can just get rid of that if needs be. All the octaves. And then grab those notes, paste them back into our chords. And I'm going to make sure that the lower frequencies are taken out so they don't clash with our bass.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Cool, so let's have a look at these vocals. We can see they're 140 BPM because it tells us. Make sure it's warped to 140 like that.
I know you don't.
It's not stuck.
I know you don't love me like you say. I know you don't love me like you say you do. I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Yeah, that's nice. So let's just bring some of these in. Really nice, that. Just take the volume down a bit. Let's just get a little kind of idea going. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right now.
Cool. Okay. I would work on this. I would work on this a load more, but you know, time is of the essence. I want to give you maximum value.
I'm sorry.
I'll use you. I'll definitely use you. Okay, so that's kind of how we get some vocals. Let's call those backing. And we'll color those both purple. And then make sure that our clips are that color too, just to keep things simple. Now we're going to move on to the vocal chop riff. Let's see, auxiliary and sidechain aux. Already done that, mate. Onto this vocal chop. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a MIDI channel, and I'm going to use a simpler. And I'm going to chop some of these vocals that Bridget Kelly sang, and I'm going to use that as my vocal chop instrument. So let's find a nice little bit in her voice that we like. Just a tiny little, doesn't matter what note it is. This main bit is,
I know you don't love me
like, it's got a nice transient attack on that. So what you can do is you can just make that into a little clip, just cut it. I press Command and E to do that. Then drag it in to a simpler. And now when I hit the simpler, it's going to make a noise. I'm tweaking it to get the, make sure it's got a nice staccato start. Now we need to tune this to the track. That's very, very important. So what you can do is you can hit your chords thing, press middle C or some other note, but whatever it is, you have to press the same note on the vocals and tune it by ear to it. So this is middle C. Aux, no sound. And now when we hit the, you can hear that's a different note. So we have to go into controls and tune it with transpose. Okay, they are now in tune. And we might do a bit of detuning to absolutely tweak it, but now we can basically use this vocal chop as an instrument. So let's do that. Let's just kind of get a feel. You can use the template technique as well if you want, if you're not that strong on the piano or the keyboard. Let's call it vocal chop, but I'm just going to do it by ear. Just get into the groove, play what I feel. I think it's slightly out of tune, so we'll use the detune. Let's make sure it's really in. Okay, let's do it. I'm just going to do it really simple. Cool, let's get that in. You can either program it in or play it in. Because it's simple, I just record, program it in. Because it won't take long. Just did a bit of a change at the end, just to spice things up. Now let's get some of that aux reverb on it. With that aux reverb, we can actually put a pump comp on that as well, a sidechain compressor, to make it pump even more. And if we increase the volume of that auxiliary reverb, you can really hear the effect it has, its pumping effect. So you can hear it's really kind of starting to take shape now. So let's put our little vocal hook here and turn those off just for that last bit.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. I know you don't love me like you say you do.
We need a bit of a crash. Okay, so let's get that in. We've done that. We're going to do a synth riff soon and a pluck layer to that. But and some really cool trick with a gate. Let's put a crash in, just a simple crash, because I feel it needs more impact on that drop. So, drum hits. Just make sure it's kind of hitting the right frequencies. Again, it's something that you can... Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'll just put an EQ on, make sure I take out the bass frequencies. You can add reverb to that and it'll give it that nice pumping feel too. I might even compress that to make it stay louder for longer. So you can hear the difference on that drop. Cool, okay, let's spice things up and add this extra riff that I was talking about. I'll just rearrange the order of that, put the chords. I like to have the chords below that, and just call that crash. Color that green because it's a drum. Boom, boom. Lovely jubbly. And again, you could do some cool effects with the vocal chops as well. You could do like a bit of a glide. He said as it does absolutely nothing whatsoever. Why is that? That's a bit rubbish. I don't know why that's not working, but it would work if you were to kind of overlap them like this. Then you can hear the difference it makes. You can hear it kind of sweeps between the two notes then. But yeah, that doesn't seem particularly intuitive. You would think it would do it even if you didn't overlap them. So you get the idea of what you could do then. Anyway, onto this riff. So we want something that kind of makes it more interesting than just these chord stabs. So we're going to add a riff that is a sustained riff still, but we want it to sound a bit more grungy, add some freaking character to this bad boy. So let's go Synth Riff. And I'm just going to use a sample. I'm going to find some random old sample. Again, you got to make sure that it's tuned to the rest of the track. So let's just look at some old samples. Something with a bit of... That sounds pretty cool. Like, let's see if we can make that work. So let's play this in C and see if it's in tune with the chords. There's my chords. Okay, now we're in tune. So the first thing I'm going to do is work out... Actually, I'm going to change that to a sampler so I can actually loop it nicely. And then I'm going to work out some riff that works with the chords. And again, you can use the template technique to do this, but I'm just doing it by ear. It's not amazing, but it's just to add some more character. Cool. So we're just going to program it in. And then for the second part of the drop, I'm going to change it up a bit. And these are all using notes from within the key of E major, so, you know, this isn't rocket science. Okay, this might be a bit cheesy, but, you know. We're locked in our houses, so what are you going to do to me, eh? Huh. Cool, and it's already got this kind of grungy sound imparted into it, but we're going to layer that with a pluck. So I'm just going to call it pluck, just to help it cut through the mix a bit. And I'm going to use a wavetable, which again comes with Ableton 10 suite. So let's choose a pluck sound. See how that sounds? We just put these together on their own. That's cool. And I'll make sure that the bass is taken out of this one as well. And you could add some more grunge to it if you really wanted. You know, you can chuck on a amp, which is pretty cool. Play with one of those a bit. Let's try heavy. And we're just going to layer those together, and I'll show you why soon. And let's just call that Synth Riff in big letters so we can see it's a bus. Color that bus colored, color those synth colors. Lovely jubbly. Assign tracks to colors. Vocal chop. Chops. Let's just color that. There we go. And then I don't like that amp. I'm going to get rid of it. And now we can add our global reverb. Which is cool. And we can shape the EQ on the group a bit. And what we could do, which will sound quite cool on here, is we're just going to add another aux channel. I'm going to put a delay on there, just a simple delay, and turn that to 100% wet, and then let's put a bit of that on our group. Actually, just on the pluck. Whoops, I forgot to put ping pong. So you can hear the difference in. Cool, so there's our epic, almost kind of oriental sounding in terms of instruments. So let's have a listen. Let's get these chords sounding even bigger. We're going to add a bit of saturation to get those popping through the mix. Whoops, what was I doing? Saturator, here we go. So let's just listen to some of these presets. Obviously, you know, things are getting a little bit messy there, so we'll have to turn stuff down and then we can mix it up from scratch. But before we do that, I want to kind of show you the break and the build. I said this was in depth, guys. There's a lot to get through, so we're almost there. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. If so, let me know. Give me an amen, brother, in those comments below, because I need to know if you're digging these so I can keep making them. Let's get some EQ on that vocal, just get some of that low end out. Lovely, lovely rich voice. And I'm going to stick on some of that global reverb.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Do you though? Do you, Bridget? Because I wonder. Okay, let's make this break. We've already kind of got a break going on. So I'm just going to stick another bit of time there, technical term, and I'm going to show you how to introduce the drop. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to filter the fuck out of these chords. So let's take it down. Chords. There's a bit of clipping going on somewhere. Let's turn the output of the thingy down. There we go. I was looking at these meters here. There's a bit of clipping here. It's because everything's, you know, because you've got 4 operators for the price of 1. So I'm just going to turn all of those to -3. This is called gain staging, guys. It's very important if you want a nice, clean, non-clipping mix. You can always turn the volume up on the channel fader. But now we've got a nice clean signal. So let's filter these. We're going to filter it up to the drop. And then on the drop, it's going to be full power, full steam ahead. But what we're going to use for the break is a guitar type arpeggio. And we're going to create this from scratch. And it's going to complement the vocals that we've got, and it's going to give us a different vibe to the song. So let's just copy and paste those. Again, I'd spend a lot more time getting the right vocals for this, but I just want to show you how you can craft a future bass track in this way. So let's call it guitar plucks, or some weird word that I just made up. All right, let's go to sounds and then go to guitars. Again, I'm just going to be using the Ableton ones. Oh, nice. Yes, Guitar Palm Legacy, I accept. It might be a bit much, but we'll see soon. I'm just going to turn it down a bit. And we are going to do an arpeggio of these same chords that we've already been using for the chords. So if we go, just call it guitar pluck. First, I'm going to draw in the normal chords, and I'm going to show you a super cool trick to make them more emotional. So I'll do them exactly the same notes as our chords here. So where are our chords? We'll do an A, C sharp, E, and we're just going to kind of do a little pattern that like this. We'll do an octave down. I'm just going to do it in 3s, and then it's syncopated and sounds cool. And then onto the next chord. Okay, so what's the next chord? The second chord is B, D sharp, F sharp. Again, we're just going to copy and paste. Again, copy and paste. This is going to sound a bit basic, but I'm going to show you how to make it sound advanced. Okay, so the way that we do that is, even though we're just using 3 notes, we can change that bass note to the 7th. So in our chord here, you remember we've got, that's the 1st, that's the 3rd, that's the 5th, and that's the 7th. So I'm just going to play with some of these notes. I'm going to take that from the 1st down to the 7th. Which automatically makes it sound, you know, more more of a heart melter. So it kind of plucks at the heartstrings. Let's try it with the chords up a bit. And I'm going to do the same with some of these chords. I'm just going to bring some of these notes closer together in the scale. That doesn't work. That works. Let's see if we can bring this one down to the 7th.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. I know you don't love me. I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right now.
So instantly you've got something that sounds like lush. And you can even switch up the last 2 notes there. Cool, so that's what I would do in the break. And we've got the chords underneath, so it sounds like this. Whoops. Put the reverb on.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right now.
And obviously we want a kind of bigger vocal on the build up there, going into the drop, which is then going to be the vocal chops. But we are going to quickly introduce this synth riff earlier on. And the way we're going to do that is we'll introduce it on the build by copying and pasting it. And then we're going to take the energy out of it by using another filter. And we're just going to copy and paste the one that we put on the main chords actually. So let's check this out. So actually, no, we're going to do it on each separate track, not the group, because you can hear the non-filtered signal is being fed through to the auxiliary channel. So we want the filtering to happen before that. That's better.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right now.
So you can hear that kind of filter build works. Let's just edit it a bit. Let's edit that. So that's how you can take out the energy. And, you know, you could even do a bit of volume automation there because you just really want to be hinting at that. So let's have a listen.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right now. I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right
Cool. Okay, so we are really getting there. Not long now, so I'll just do a couple more things like get a build in there. those vocals need to be bigger on the drop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my vocals quickly from Bridget. Let's just wait for a really cool one.
Call me right now. I know you don't love me like it. Yeah.
That's cool. We'll use that before the drop.
Yeah. Call me.
I'm going to add some more reverb to that drum loops snare quickly as well, and I'll show you how. But first, let's get a build in. I'm just going to use a build up that I found again on Splice, just to look for future bass drum build. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, we want to take some of that high-end energy out at first, so let's put an auto filter in. And then we'll open it up as we go towards that break. Let's get some more size on those vocal chops. Make sure they're all taken out. And then for the vocal chops, again, we're going to have Bridget's singing the hook at the end. I know something. And then we'd have a bit of delay on that as well, which we put on the auxiliary channel. But for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to do that now because we're running out of time. Again, guys, let me know if you've enjoyed this. I really hope you've learned some stuff from it. Let's just put ping pong on there. That's cool.
I know you don't love me like you say you do. Call me right now. I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Almost there, guys. We're just going to add a little kind of drum intro. Classic future bass. And then we are pretty much done for this lesson. Like, we've covered a lot. So let's just get this last bit in. I'm just going to go for some that I've perhaps already got. So let's look in my thingy. That's a technical term as well. Just fills, drums, fills. Check them out. Oh yeah, classic future bass. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We'll 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't know what tempo it is. It says 148, but I don't trust it. 148. Maybe. Yeah, so there we go. And if you really wanted to spice things up with the mix, you could add some low end to that kick and bass. I'm just going to add a bit of Bark of Dog. So on the drum loop, I'm just going. This is another thing that's not with Ableton, but again, it's free, so that counts. We are just going to add Bark of Dog to beef up that bass line. Sorry, the kick. That is fat. Like, that is fat. This is the one thing. I said that I would show you how to do a cool trick with a what's it called? Gate. So let's do that. So say you want that more like on your chords. That's another technical term. I'll turn off the pump comp for the time being. I will stick on a gate. Let's go to gate. Again, this comes with Ableton Live. This is something I don't usually do, but you totes can do it. And then let's create a MIDI track, call it trigger. Then it doesn't matter what sound you use, so I'm just going to use an operator to write in a rhythm. And it doesn't matter what note it is either. But for the sake of not confusing things, I shall just have it on A, because that's the bass note of those chords, or the first chord. So then you write a little riff that you like, a little rhythm, and it just has to be on one note. So let's do that then. And I'm going to give it so there's a little gap in between each one. So let's just do that. I'm going to duplicate it. Whoops, didn't duplicate it correctly. Need to make sure it's kind of duplicating the exact in the right place. Make it. Voila. So I failed to do it correctly again. So we're just going to duplicate that clip. You can't run Ableton 10 without turning off the automation. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use that to trigger the rhythm of the chords. So I'm going to click this little thing here, choose sidechain input, trigger. Now check this out. First I'm going to change this to sends only so we can't actually hear the trigger. It's like the sidechain compression, it's just going to be triggering this. Okay. That's not doing anything. Because you need to have the chords playing, obviously. So you can hear it starts. When you get the threshold in the right place. And this is what trance producers used to do a lot as well. Same thing, but now you can hear. You get that cool effect. You know, it confuses it a bit because I've got delay on that sound already. So there you go, that was my super duper trigger trick. Okay, there you have it guys. Alright, I'm going to do my outro thing, but stick around because I've got some great news at the end of it. There you have it guys, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends if you liked it, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Download all the project files for free below. I may have already just said that, but stay safe, and until next time, cheers and happy producing.